Hello everybody, what the heck is going on? Welcome back to another episode of Form Check Friday. That's right, we're here doing the one and only Form Check Friday, where we take your viewer submitted videos and we throw them up on the screen behind me, and I, a powerlifting coach of almost 10 years now, am gonna do some analysis, try to help y'all lift a little bit better and get a little bit more out of your training and your technique. Now, real quick, just gonna give a shout out to this video is brought to you by, we'll go with that route, the Calgary Barbell training app. Go ahead and head over to calgarybarbell.programs.app to check that out. There's a whole lot of cool features. I won't bore you about it, but go check it out. It is awesome. We've already gotten a lot of really good feedback, and it's only getting better. New features rolling out, new programs rolling out. It's happening. All right, let's get into this. So last week we left off with Martin here, and Martin's doing some bench press, as you all know if you tuned in last week. So let's take a look. See. All right. Damn, I'm really small. I'm gonna make myself a little bigger. Hey, there we go. All right. So I'm gonna open my pen tool. Dylan, this computer was not prepared. We ain't ready. All right, Martin. So he says he's been working on control in the bottom of his bench press. He said he's gained a fair bit of weight. He's gone from 185 to 207. And this set here is 245 for 5 at just under 80%. So first things first, I think the setup looks pretty good. It's almost a little jarring on the unrack, right? We want to make sure we're not losing that shoulder position as we unrack. We don't want to be popping the shoulders out. Unrack with just the triceps, right? Just the triceps. That way we can maintain a little bit better shoulder position out of the rack. The other thing, make sure you're keeping those elbows locked. I mean, I don't know if you have any plans to compete, but one of the things they look for in a powerlifting competition is going to be that your elbows are straight and the bar is fully locked out before you get the start command. So that's something to consider at least. It also looks like a very narrow grip. So the meme that I always recommend people do is, have you tried widening your grip? So I would recommend maybe messing around with a bit of a wider grip. You got some long arms. One of the best ways to do that is just implement a secondary bench day where you're doing a wide grip bench as a variation, totally different max, different expectations, and just see how it pans out for you. Just see if that works for you. It might not, but I definitely think it's worth a shot. So yeah, hopefully that helps you, Martin. Thanks for sending that in. A quick note to anyone looking to have their videos looked at, go ahead and send those videos to formcheckfriday@gmail.com. We clear it out every 3 months or so because we don't want it to pile up, and we don't want to be checking stuff that's 8 months old. And yeah, we use a random number generator. We get thousands of submissions, so if you don't get chosen, don't take it personally. We still love you. We still appreciate the fact you're here. Go ahead and submit anyways, and hopefully you'll make it, like our friend Marshall did here. So Marshall is from South Louisiana, so shout outs to Louisiana. He says he started powerlifting 2 years ago, went equipped, and then kind of stepped back. He said he realized that his technique was not what he wanted it to be. He said jacked up, but you know, he's trying to figure out how to keep his back a little bit more neutral right now. He's trying to figure out leg drive. So he says this is 2 sets of 3 at 265. So let's take a look here. So number one, I feel like you're kind of starting in a rounded position, and then you arch your back kind of as you go. So you're starting with your hips under you, and then as you start pushing, you push your hips back and kind of away from you, which I think is getting you to a better position. But because that arch is part of the movement pattern and not sort of a preamble to the movement, I think it's presenting you with this really sort of pronounced sticking point, especially on this 3rd rep here. So I would say get that arch and that back extension. Think about hips down and back, not down and under you, and get that back extended before you start. Because you can see here, it's a 2-part movement, right? You kind of start the pull, and then you flatten the back, and then you finish the lift. So make that sort of achieving that back angle a part of your setup, not a part of the lift. And you can see it really pronounced on this one, really slow off the floor. because you're trying so hard to extend more as you go through the lift instead of extending ahead of time. And part of the way you're going to get that extension, at least in my opinion, is by not thinking hips down. We made a video on this on the Calgary Barbell channel a while ago, but a lot of people will cue you to try to get your hips close to the bar. And I think that's kind of an overused cue. I think in some cases, probably very valid. In some cases, absolutely works. In a lot of cases, overdone to the point where we're now seeing a bunch of lumbar flexion, which again, is not a mechanic for injury necessarily. It's not even necessarily less efficient. But if you're able to achieve a bit more of a neutral position, a lot of the times that can give you a bit of a cleaner lockout. So sometimes it's worth pursuing or going down that road to see if that's gonna give you the eventuality of a little bit more efficient technique. So that would be my advice there. Up next, we have Olivia. So Olivia said that she notices when she goes above 90%, she ends up doing what she calls a squat morning. So she's not sure if she should just get her quads stronger. She's wondering if we have any cues or if she should just have a little bit more confidence. So I'm gonna guess that this is a set above 90% that you sent us in. And honestly, Olivia, I think your squat morning is very subtle. So I think part of this is just gonna be more confidence. Like there is a tiny little degree of movement of those knees back, maybe a tiny little bit more on this second rep. The only thing that happens on the second rep is we get that bar kind of rolling up the back a little bit. So maybe we could maintain a little bit better sort of back tension as we change direction. I talk a lot about the shelf and trying to like pull that bar into your back with your lats. See how we get that little bit of elbow movement out of the bottom? See if I can hone in on that. But right there, see how as you come up, the elbows kind of lead you up and then that bar moves forward just slightly. I think if you can keep those elbows in line with your trunk, just kind of keep squatting. I don't think you need to make any drastic changes. I don't think you need to make any big cues. You certainly don't need to unload the bar to try to correct anything. I think overall, honestly, Olivia, your squat technique is pretty friggin' fantastic here. Good depth. It's just that little bit of elbow slide. And I do think that confidence is maybe the thing here. I'm going to talk just for a quick second about one of the maybe unintentional issues with doing something like Form Check Friday and having people become maybe hyper critical or hyper aware of technique. And that is that we can overanalyze things. We can over cue things. We can expect a certain degree of perfectionism that is detrimental to our performance. So I'm really kind of 50-50, and I've been noticing this a lot in the app Discord, people asking questions about technique, and a lot of the times we'll see other members of the community cue in and have little things to nitpick, or you'll see the lifter themselves have a lot of things to nitpick. But my opinion, as a coach of 8 years now, is that it looks really good and you should just keep practicing. So a lot of the times we can get too wrapped up in these things. We can try to, emulate some sort of aesthetic of perfection that we've maybe seen somewhere else, and it's not always the most necessary or even beneficial thing. So let's be careful we don't get wrapped up in, overthinking technique and overthinking how things look as a proxy for how good we are. Just a quick aside there. I like to kind of go off on those tangents when they come up. All right, next up is Danny doing some bench press here. I'm gonna open this in a different media player and see. And there we go. I wanted to see your legs, man. We got to see that leg drive. Believe it or not, legs matter in the bench press. What we're doing with our legs matters in the bench press. All right, so Danny, bench press, powerlifting for 8 months now. Started training his paused bench because I think he said he's interested in competing in powerlifting down the road, which is awesome. Stick with it. Do some meets. You'll probably have the time of your life. I know I did. His first set of 5 at 240 pounds. All right, so first off, right off the hop, we're gonna want to get a little more set up than this, right? I think we can get the shoulder blades pulled together a little harder. I think we can get the shoulder blades pulled down a little harder. If you're looking to compete and you're training your paused bench press, the other big thing that you're probably gonna have to do is get these feet flat on the ground. right? Depending on what federation you compete in. Some federations will allow you to what's called toe pick, which is what you're doing here, where you kind of just have your toes on the ground. Other federations will require that the whole of your shoe is flat on the ground. So just be aware of that, I guess, if your plans to compete down the road. Now, in terms of the bar path, in terms of where we're touching based on your grip width, I think things look good. Again, I'm just gonna go ahead and meme myself and recommend that you try a wider grip. A lot of the times it helps. It's not a magic bullet or anything, but a lot of the times if we can trim the range of motion, we can bench a little bit more. Now it looks like you're actually getting some leg drive, which is really cool to see in a more novice lifter, right? You said you were powerlifting for 8 months now. So that's dope, man. I'm glad that you kind of understand that concept of leg drive. What I would recommend though is try to apply leg drive the whole set. It looks like what's happening here is we're getting leg drive, and this is why it's important to see the legs in the bench press. We're getting leg drive kind of as you press. There you go, your butt came off the bench on that last run. So also if you're doing multiple sets of 5 here, this was like a 9.5 or a 10 maybe. So probably need to train with a little bit less intensity, at least some of the times, right? We don't want every set to look like that. Leg drive should be something that is, in my opinion, part of the setup. And there should be leg drive happening on the way down. There should be leg drive during the pause, and there should be leg drive on the way up. So I'm a big proponent of consistent leg drive. So thinking about pushing yourself back up the bench the whole time. The other big things here are gonna be when we lock out, keep those shoulders pulled back. Like I was talking about with Martin's unrack. When he unracked, he kind of lost his shoulder position. And I think one of the things that's happening here with you, Danny, is as you lock out, you're losing that shoulder position. So just like when we unrack, when we lock out, it's just triceps, right? Triceps lock out, not shoulders. As soon as we start losing shoulder position throughout the set, we're gonna start seeing the set become very quickly much more difficult from rep to rep. And this is something that I struggled with for a long time, and probably still do to some extent, but it's all about maintaining that upper back tension throughout the set. And yeah, that's probably most of what I've got for you. I don't want to over inundate you with too many things. That's another little rant I could go off on, but I think it's really easy to get caught up in thinking about 17 different things that you need to do in every set. Try to pick a few things to focus on and just start there. 1 or 2 cues is usually enough. All right, this is Connor. So Connor says he's been deadlifting for 3 months. He says his hips start pretty high and he's wondering if he's lacking the core strength to get a better back position. So this is a pretty similar pull, maybe not that similar, but some of the similar things going wrong as with Marshal's deadlift, right? We're seeing a pretty rounded out position, which again, not necessarily a mechanic for injury, not even necessarily less efficient, but in a novice, I'm probably gonna try to coach that out 9 times out of 10. So what I'm gonna recommend is that you do some cat-cow exercises. Now we've talked about those a fair bit on the channel. You can go ahead and just punch those into Google. Cat-cow, basically you're gonna get down on all 4s on your hands and knees with your hips above your knees and your shoulders above your hands. And you're gonna go between as much back flexion as you can get and as much back extension as you can get. And you're gonna do that before you deadlift so that you can feel what those end ranges of motion feel like in both full spinal extension and full spinal flexion. And what's happening here is we're in flexion. What I'd like for you to do is to try and get into more extension. And the reason I like the cat-cow is because it teaches you how that feels. Obviously, when you're deadlifting, you can't watch yourself, or maybe you can if you have a mirror, but that's maybe not the most conducive thing to do. So if we learn how things feel, then we can apply it to the lift. So proprioceptive training, if you will. The other thing is just maybe dial the weight back a little bit, right? Took a quick sec or two for this to break the floor. We're struggling pretty good, and honestly, we do want to struggle. We do want lifting to be hard. It should be challenging. I'm not telling you it shouldn't be, but if you're trying to make changes to your technique and you're still training at sort of a maximal intensity, those two things kind of don't really go hand in hand, right? A lot of the times what we want to do is we want to get in like that 6 to 7 RPE range, you know, if we're doing like triples at 80% or something like that. We want some nice easy work sometimes so that we can cultivate good technique, so that we can practice, right? Powerlifting is as much about the skill and the practice aspect as it is about lifting heavy things so that you adapt and get stronger. Looks like your upper back position is actually pretty decent. I kind of like what you're doing with your shoulder blades here, but from here down, like we got to try to get those shoulder blades down a little more. I want you to think about pushing your hips down and back. And yeah, those are probably the biggest things that I would recommend you work on. Try to get that little bit of extension, try to push those hips down and back, and do this on your warm-up sets, right? Lift a little lighter. It's gonna make it easier for you to change things and to, you know, work with your technique. All right. Up next is Calvin. Now, Calvin says he's doing some squats. He's 18. He says he really only deadlifted in the past. I think he said he was a rower for a while, and they pretty much only deadlifted in their strength training. So he's been into powerlifting for 6 months. He says his squat is just not improving at the same pace as his other lifts. Now, Calvin says he's gone back and forth a little bit between high bar and low bar, and he's not really sure because he says that his low bar feels stronger, but the technique actually feels worse. So here Calvin's doing a set of 4 at 80%, and I'm gonna ask that everybody head down into the comment section below, give Calvin some constructive criticisms, and I'm gonna start our video next week with my critique of Calvin, but I always really like to see what people leave in the comments section, and it's good to develop your critical eye so that you can look at your own stuff, you can look at your training partner stuff, and you can kind of come up with some of these things. So leave your comments below on what you think is up, and then see how it matches up to myself next week. Again, head to calgarybarbell.programs.app to check out the CBB training app. And other than that, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.